See if you can name all 5 of these pieces. Well, if you can name all 5 pieces, put them in the comments below. But the real question is, what ties all of these excerpts together? It's rolled chords. And in this video, I want to go through 5 different approaches to rolled chords, when you might want to use them, how to do them, how to work on them rhythmically, how to place it on the beat, and how to play very sensitive, controlled rolled chords when we need to do it. So let's get started. Rolling chords is a very idiomatic, very characteristic element of the classical guitar. It sounds good, in part because the guitar is so welcoming to the strumming technique. We can roll chords by using our thumb to strum. We can roll them with thumb and fingers. We can roll them just with fingers, or even a backward stroke across the strings. Now, first of all, I want to address rhythm of rolled chords, because this is the most pressing question for a lot of people. What can happen is that your rolled chord is a little bit uneven and doesn't sound nice and beautiful as you may have heard it in a piece. And a really useful way to approach this is to think of rolled chords in a rhythmic fashion. So, of course, the smallest amount of notes we'll have that we can roll, or split really, is 2 notes. And so when we have 2 notes, I'm going to do eventually a bar chord here, A minor bar chord across the 5th fret if you want to join me. When we have 2 notes, we can think of it rhythmically as just an 8th note going to a downbeat. So it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1. It would sound like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1. It's really important that we place the downbeat on the top note. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1. So that's what we might call a split pair of notes. And we'll talk more about that later when it comes into melody. Our first real rolled chord is going to be with 3 notes. Think of this as 2 notes leading to a downbeat, so 2 upbeats, or an anacrusis almost. We'll think of it as 8th notes going 4 and 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1. Now, even though you might think this is too slow for a rolled chord, what we're practicing is rhythmic control. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1. Once you get more comfortable with it, you can squash those 2 notes into the 8th note. So we'll have 16th notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Now it's starting to sound more like a rolled chord. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. When we get to 4 notes in a chord, well, let's do an A minor. We can actually think of the rhythm as a triplet. Da 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 dum. Think of almost Beethoven's 5th. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. So think of it as a triplet on the 4th beat going to the downbeat. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And again, really accenting the top note, so we get da 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 da. Da, 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 da. 1, 2, 3. Now again, if we want to speed that up and keep the rhythm, we can try and squash that into the last pickup of an 8th note. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And there's your rolled chord. Again, always trying to land on that top note. Once we get to 5 notes in total, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then we think of 4 semiquavers leading to a downbeat. To make it easy to start off with rhythmically, let's think of it as 3 and 4 and 1. So we'll play 8th notes. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1. What I'm doing with the thumb is going thumb, thumb, then I, M, A. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1. Once again, we can squash that into one beat and will sound more like a traditional rolled chord. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And if we want to really squash it to make it a nice brush of a chord, we'll put it in that last eighth note. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So now we're getting a real rhythmic structure to that roll, as opposed to just a sort of slightly random rhythmic structure to our roll. Now finally, with 6 strings, which is not that common, but we might find it at the end of a piece, a big rolled chord, or of course the iconic opening to the second movement of the Aramwith concerto. But 6 strings would be 5 notes to a downbeat. And I like to think of this more or less as a duplet and a triplet. D, da, 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 da. We'll smooth it over rhythmically, but you can think of it as 1, 2. 1, 2. And now if we smooth over the difference between the duplet and the triplet, 1, 2. We're approximating this quintuplet a little bit, but we're trying to spread it out evenly over those 2 beats. And of course, once you get used to that rhythmic approach, you can make it in a shorter duration. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Here again, I'm using the thumb multiple times. P, 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 I, M, A. However, you can start to use different right hand figurations. For 3 notes, you could go P, I, M. That fits really nicely in the hand. P, I, M, A. For 4 notes. For 5, you could do P, I, M, A, and then M again. That's really nice actually to bring out the top note. And then for 6, you could do a combination with thumb, thumb, P, 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 I, M, A, M. And finally, and perhaps most challenging, is using just the thumb. The reason it's most challenging is because it involves the whole arm and you have to get a very smooth movement in order to get that clean rhythm. What I do suggest is to tip over the thumb a little bit so it slides off the string, it falls off the strings, as opposed to in our standard position we'd have to articulate every single note. So almost do a thumbs down position, boo, into the sound hole, and let the nail fall off the strings. And then you'll get a bit more of an even strum, an even arpeggiation. The tricky thing though with the thumb is trying to get that top note to sing. I did mention that we try to get the top note on the beat, and this I would say is the majority of the time. However, you will find cases where you play the bass note on the beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. That might be an instance where the chord sort of ripples after the initial execution. It might be at the end, there's a little flourish at the end of a Bach piece. It's just a little ripple of harmony. So that, in that case, the bass note might fall on the beat. Or sometimes, as in the Aramwith, the beat sort of is in the middle a little bit. With those famous chords, it's not really on the beat. It doesn't sound right. Nor does it sound right to be right on the bass. It's rather in the middle. So it's not always going to be on that beat. I would say the majority of the time it is, and often when you're trying to synchronize with an ensemble partner, you're agreeing that that note lands on the beat so that you can synchronize together. So that rhythmic approach is very, very useful. And in fact, I feel like I've kind of covered beat number 2, which is accenting that top beat. One last right-hand fingering approach that can help with that is that if you use your thumb to strum a lot of the notes in a chord, you can actually use one of your fingers prepared on the string. If you really want to take care of that top note, it's a slightly unorthodox fingering, but it works. But practicing the rhythmic approach, practicing landing on the downbeat as you practice those rhythms will then build up your ability to accent or bring out that particular melodic note as you strum, as you break that chord. Now, in the middle here, I want to address when and why we might roll or arpeggiate a chord. The guitar is so good at it. It almost wants to do it all the time, and it feels nice in the hand as well to break chords, to roll chords. However, in my opinion, there can be too much of a good thing, and guitarists can tend to over-roll chords to the point where they lose their luster, and it just kind of complicates the music. So in general, I like to think of rolled chords as a type of ornament, just like we might have some little mordent or trill. The rolled chord is a kind of ornament. For instance, it might reinforce a harmony, like a suspension. That rolled chord, relax. That rolled chord there helps enhance that suspension, or it might be at a cadential point. The end of a piece, sort of that finality of that last chord really suits the rolled technique. It could even come on the dominant harmony. So it can suit multiple locations. Where we don't want to do it so much is just having it all over the place. Let me see. One of the examples I played at the beginning of the video was the second bagatelle by William Walton. And he's been very specific about what chords in his bagatelle are to be rolled, what are to be block chords. You'll have the rolled symbol, the zigzag line next to the notes. So we have rolled, da-da-dum, nice rhythmic, block chord, rolled, block chords. Quite specific with what chords are to be rolled and what chords are to be block chords. In my opinion, we give the benefit of the doubt to block chords. And I often think of an orchestra or a piano player. Would they by default play block chords, or would they roll everything given that they have the chance? I think they'd play block chords. Or not I think, I know they'd play block chords. If you heard an orchestra, every time they came in with a unison chord rolling, rippling across the orchestra, you'd think these people aren't really playing together. So even though it's something that feels and sounds so great on the guitar, I would suggest to use it intentionally rather than habitually in the hand. Now, another place to use roll chords, why we might use them, is actually to make our left hand job a little easier. This is a marriage between a technical problem and a musical effect. So musically it sounds good, especially if we've framed it nicely, and technically it can help us play the instrument. One example, which I played at the beginning of this video, is from the second part of Romanza. It's got a lot of challenging barres, and this is probably the hardest one. And we have to shift almost immediately. Here we've got barres, we've got notes held down on the first string, and we have to do that with that very quick shift and without disrupting the melody. It's really quite difficult. A rolled chord here, or even a split note, can actually help a great deal. Oops, so weird. There's a split pair of notes. Gives us that fraction of a second to get up to that position, and it sounds pretty good too. It sounds quite expressive. If we were to roll that, really adding in a couple of notes that aren't written, it still works musically. It's not exactly what's written in the score. It's taking a little bit of liberty there. But it's an example of how a rolled chord can give you that fraction of a moment that makes the hand's job a little easier, that makes the transition musically smoother. So that's another reason we might use a roll, is to actually solve a technical challenge. Now, there are two more points I want to address. One is going to be how we deal with very delicate moments with rolled chords and protect strings that are not meant to be plucked. And then also a couple of unusual approaches to broken or rolled chords. So in the first instance, I want to play you the very last chord of a piece, a stunning piece by Phil Houghton called Kinkajou, I Love You. Normally there's a F tuning, so I'll just hold down the F. But at the end of this, we have a triple P, pianissimo marking. And we have this beautiful chord, and the top note being on the third string. So many times our top notes are on the first string. And what we want to do here is make sure we don't accidentally hit other strings, creating a different harmony that's intended. So what you can actually do on some chords is place other fingers on the string so that when you get to that top note, you can simply rest your thumb, in this instance, still get the accent on that top note, but when in no danger at all of strumming extra strings because we have fingers stopping them in advance. It also gives a great sense of control in the hand so that we don't do an accidental brush of a string. Finally, we have rolled chords that go backwards. They don't always go ascending, P-I-M-A, and also ones that might be completely asymmetrical. So a backwards one might be, and this is another example, another excerpt from the beginning. This is from Evocación, from Suite del Recuerdo, by Jose Merlin. Thank you off camera. And we have nice backward strum there, and in this instance we're using the I finger kind of like a pick, just dragging. Same process, same rhythmic, and also landing on the sixth string in time in this case. Now if you want to have a couple of examples of asymmetric rolls, we've got Granada, and what's happening here is we have P, I-M-A, and then the melody note is in the middle of that chord. It's that E. So we actually come back and replay. It's quite a unique rolled chord there. We're anticipating the bass note there, coming back and bringing the melody out. Same might happen in the second movement of the Cathedral by Barrios. So we have a chord here. We could play it as a block chord, bringing out the melody, which is on the third string, and that works quite well. Or we could do this. A little rolled chord going P, A, I. A little less conventional, but another way to do it. So that is 5 different approaches to rolled chords, some tips, some ideas, how and when we might use it. And I want to give you one last bonus approach to rolled chords, and that is the idea of splitting notes. Splitting notes is when we have a pair of notes, not any more than 2. And it often happens when we have a melodic note that needs to be dealt with one finger, maybe the thumb perhaps. A good example is in Maria Luisa. So we have here the melody on the 4th string, we have a bass note, we have accompaniment above it. So the melody's in the middle of the texture. So what's happening here is I'm playing the bass note a little bit early before the beat. I'm splitting that pair of notes instead of doing this, which is a viable way of doing it as well. You can do a double stroke, a double thumb stroke. But instead you can split and separate those notes, making the melody very clear. Another good example is from Bagatelle number 2. Same idea. Melody's on the 4th string. So there's there's a bonus tip about rolling chords. I know it's a popular topic, or a curious topic for a lot of people, of how to roll chords nice and evenly, why we do it, how to balance it out. So hopefully this video has provided some structure for which you can apply it to your rolled chords. And if you have any other approaches that you found useful, please leave them in the comments below. See you next time.